Kia ora koutou whānau. Welcome back to another edition of Big Hairy News. I'm a big hairy rushing at the moment. How are you, Chewy?
Good bit. I'm much the same. Because Claire's been away for ages. I'm just catching her up on that Fallout TV show.
Oh, and, yeah. We finished it.
And we're just coming up to the end of the episode that we're at. And we're like, oh shit, the time, fuck. So yes.
Well, look, couple of things, whānau. We haven't, what do you call it? Advertised? Probably the right word. We haven't put in the show notes one of the biggest stories we're going to do tonight. Obviously, many of you would have heard about the appointment of the way that Chris Bishop appointed Bill English to do the review of Kāinga Ora. Now, just a bit of a heads up, right? When you look at the show notes and you say what's coming up tonight, if either of the television networks have an exclusive, then that'll probably never be in the show notes because they keep their powder dry because they don't want the opposition to get wind of it, so they don't actually release it until 6 p.m. So, of course, when I put the show together, we didn't know all about this tomfoolery around Bill English sort of starting the appointment of himself to the Kāinga Ora thing. So we're definitely doing that tonight as well, in case you were wondering. And what I'm kind of saying to you in the future is if there are ever any of those exclusives that are the kind of biggest news story in the day, we will cover them, even if it's not advertised. But if it's an exclusive, that sort of sometimes happens that way. So here we go then. So you're doing Fallout. I was gonna talk about a TV show tonight as well. We didn't do it last night because we had a guest, Anna Brooks. Now, speaking of guests, Bomber is going to come join us tomorrow. We kind of had a chat today, and he goes, we haven't chatted for a while on BHN. I said, what about tomorrow night? I went, yeah, cool, let's do that. Thursday night, we've got Craig Rennie, and I haven't even told you this yet, Chewy. Tuesday next week, the Chipolata himself will be on show live at 9:00. Chippy's coming to join us.
I'm sorry, what?
The Chipolata is coming to join us next Tuesday.
Oh, holy shit. Okay, yeah. Cool.
Yep. And I've got I've put a few irons in the fire about people around the budget. Haven't heard back from them yet, but we'll keep you up to date as to what's going on there. So tonight it's just us. Sorry. It's just us. Sorry, not sorry. Tomorrow night, Bomber. Thursday night, Craig Rennie, and there may be more people on Thursday night. Like we've gone to the Greens and we've gone to Te Pāti Māori. And actually, I should check my phone because I also messaged Te Pāti Māori today. I'm pretty sure that's not going to have done anything. Nope, that's all fine. There you go. And obviously, we went to Labour, and they've said because obviously the budget is very big news. Basically, the first time we could get Chippy was next Tuesday, so I snagged it. So yep, we'll do that. Let's take that. Come on then. So yeah, that's sort of what's happening over the next few while. Now, Fallout. Now, if you've seen Fallout, remember last time we talked about Fallout, we got a whole bunch of messages in the conversation around spoilers. I'll tell you something I'm watching at the moment. There is a documentary series. I'm not actually sure where it's on because I've got it on a portal. But this is it here. And I'm watching it at the moment. I have yet to share my screen. That's how quickly we're rushing through here. It's really quite disturbing. It's called Jared from Subway Catching a Monster. It's a three-part series, and we're 2 parts of the way through it. And it's terrible. There was a reporter in Florida, a pretty lady reporter, who caught his eye, and he said something to her about liking young girls, and she kind of went, what the fuck? And then she started a sting operation herself to record conversations and kind of play along. And they got to a point where it was so serious, the conversation, that she went to the FBI. The FBI, I think this is a bit rude of the FBI. The FBI then went, you realize you've committed a felony by recording without his knowledge, so you better work for us. Like, they could have just said, help us, and she would have, I'm sure. But they did that whole, well, you have to keep helping us now. And for 3 years, she's the reason that they kind of caught him. And, without being too graphic, they play some of the audio that were the conversations between him and her. And it is him admitting to the most horrific things. There's one point, for example, where he's asking her about her children's friends. And he talks about, what about that one from the broken home? And she goes, she goes, oh yeah, but she's only 7. And he goes, tell me about her. Like, honestly, his voice. I know, I can see your face, Joey. It's as bad as that, but riveting to see. We got the headlines. We know what he got put in jail for. But when you hear it out of the man's voice and out of his own mouth, it's pretty shocking. So I guess I'm not kind of suggesting anyone watch it, but yeah, we've been watching. So what we've been doing, Chewy, we've watched. This is 3 parts. Over the last 2 nights, we've watched one of these, and then we've watched an episode of Welcome to Wrexham, because you have to kind of cleanse your palate after you've watched this. So you got to kind of get it out of your system. So we watched Welcome, and we've just caught up to Welcome for Wrexham as well. So we're watching that. Welcome to Wrexham, sorry. We're watching that at the same time as well. So that's how.
I've got to be honest. Every time Jared comes up, I just think of a sketch that Auntie Donna did. That is just like a pitch meeting for new sandwich ideas at Subway, and new flavor combinations on new bread or whatever. And then the question after they get everybody to try it is like, did that sandwich make you forget that our spokesperson is a pedophile? Yes or no? Oh, it's good, but it's not that good.
Yikes. Hey, here's something else for you that you both might make you angry and you enjoy. David Farrier with a tweet today about your friend. His name's Damien Grant, but I always forget there's something else about him we have to always remind people.
He what was his big achievement? Famously being a 2-time convicted fraudster. That one.
So David Farrier has said, "Fuck stuff for employing this garbage human being." Damien Grant has tweeted out at some stage today, I guess. Apparently 33,000 people have died in the Gaza war, about 135 a day. An IDF mistake kills 40 civilians. It's a massive outrage. But if we believe the media, this level of death happens 3 times a day. Perhaps the 33,000 figure is a lie. Damien Grant.
I want to speak to that. So Damien Grant is a piece of shit. This is not new information. But let's talk about that $35,000 number.
I'm just getting ready for the show because I was rushed.
That's probably conservative at this point.
Yeah.
Like, people haven't got access to the areas that the IDF have cleared. There's talk of mass graves. There's talk of what's going on in their prison camps and stuff like that. Look, to be honest, you're talking way north of that number at this stage.
It does feel like, how in like 2,000-year-old writings they only list the number of people there as being the number of men. Kind of, I know they're not doing that, but it kind of feels the same, that there's a huge other number that's not listed. But look, I actually reckon it would be fair of us to ask Bomber about that tomorrow night, because every time we talk about and use Bomber's show on this show, one of the things that people say in the tweet is, how can he stand that Damien Grant? Now, I'm not a person who necessarily is into council culture and that kind of stuff, and everyone's entitled to use and say and speak to and have spoken for anyone. But if our mate's coming on tomorrow night, maybe we can see what his response to that. I imagine his response will be, yeah, I agree. I imagine.
The other part of that is he takes the IDF line that this bombing of a refugee camp full of tents was a mistake. Multiple strikes happened that night on tents using 2,000-pound bombs. Yeah. Those are building flattening bombs. And you can't tell me that the IDF, who have air superiority, ground superiority, technological superiority, they keep making mistakes. They keep hitting aid convoys. They keep bombing,
shooting the hostages that were coming back to them, that kind of thing.
Shooting hostages,
their own people,
shooting journalists. So with this massive advantage that they have, and the ability they have to basically just corral people and take their time and hit who they want to hit, they just keep making these mistakes. At some point, if you had some dude in your workplace that kept on making mistakes, you go, you keep making this many mistakes, mate, you're fucking stupid. Like, the day before these strikes, Benjamin Netanyahu had a press conference where he's talking about rebuilding Gaza for Israelis to put down roots. I don't know how. Can they be any more clear about what they're doing here.
Well, and also,
we're still talking about mistakes.
Too little, too late from the international community, but it seems like the world has now kind of finally drawn a line in the sand, especially with the charges that want to be laid by the International Criminal Court. But even if they claim mistake for bombing those tents, they were told by every international convoy communication, including America, not to go into Rafah. So even if it was we thought no one was in there. It doesn't matter, because everyone said don't do it. Everyone did say don't do it. And if they're pulling the old, well, we gave them a warning, that's a war crime. There's a war crime there. Because if you forcefully move someone from one state to another via a threat of violence, it's a war crime in a time of war.
They were telling people in the north to head south and people in the south to head north, and then they hit the guys that were doing that. Like it's fucking ridiculous. We didn't talk about this before we went on the show, but there's a clip I saw of Piers Morgan posing a bullshit question to someone of like, just put yourself in the shoes of Benjamin Netanyahu on October 8th. What would you do? You know, hypothetically, just this impossible situation. And it was the best fucking answer I've ever seen. This guy just turns around and goes, well, if I was, I would resign. Because this attack happened on my watch.
Yeah,
with all the advantage that we had, with all the security that we had. I let our citizens get harmed. The rescue mission was botched. You know, I dropped the ball. I'm the guy in charge. I would resign.
It's I can't remember who said it, but there was a commentator who also said, who I think is one of the best things that's been said. You know, you hear this saying that they're in tunnels. This is the only way to get them. This is the only way to get Hamas. This is the only way. And a commentator along the way said, so what would you do if you found Hamas had a cell in Jerusalem? Would you bomb the area because it's the only way? No, you would go in, technically, surgically, like what America did for bin Laden. One team, you go in surgically and you do it that way. So if you do it in your city, then it's not the only way. You can do it another way. And I think that's it's kind of an unchallengeable thing. The other thing I noticed actually watching Bill Maher, fucking Bill Maher came up on my feed today. We've tangented already. We haven't even started the show. We've gone on a tangent. Watching Bill Maher on The View, you should look it up. Bill Maher on The View talking about this. All the women from The View and Bill Maher talking about protesters holding up quote-unquote terrorist flags. That one you've got in the background, holding up terrorist flags. Bill Maher, supposedly a left-wing commentator of great esteem in America. I know that people are going to say, oh, he's not a lefty. Yeah, okay, he's not as left as the left, but that's what he's said to be. And just overtly, all of them going, the students on university campuses backing Hamas. No. Holding up a terrorist flag. No. Palestinian. And just not having the ability to actually either intellectually understand it or to be honest enough to not lump it all together. It's quite awful, actually. It's quite awful.
Yeah, every time you want Bill Maher to fall on the correct answer, he misses it more often than he hits it, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I know I see already people in the chat, he's not a lefty. No, I get it. He certainly has been, and he probably sits, I feel, supporting policies more on the left than the right. But yeah, some of the stuff he comes out with is just redonkulous. All right. Speaking of the worst person in the world, actually, there's a couple of chats. We'll get to those chats first of all, because we don't want to go past it. Because the Malululator says, Kia ora koutou, katoa, who was amped for Thursday's activation. Just had my pep talk from my TMP buddy. We'll get to that in this next story. That's why I show it there. And also Peter says, super chat, thank you for that. Preaching to the choir, but this government is corrupt. Yes, and there's a conversation there about the new bank regulations. I haven't really looked into that too much yet. So we won't touch too much on that today. Now, let's play this conversation to start off with. Now, I put out a tweet today, and I might have shot my load a bit quickly because
phrasing.
Our hairless leader has talked about illegal activity. So this is the raw clip, and then we'll play the news story afterwards. Let's just listen to the raw clip as to when it comes to the Prime Minister talking about illegal activity this weekend.
It's National Day of Action that's happening on Thursday. There are some calls on social media at the moment for Māori to actually strike, not go to work that day as part of this National Day of Action. Is that
so to strike, not go to work today? Now, to me, Chewy, that's not actually a strike, because a strike involves, a group of people organizing and saying this is the reason for it. And, that's what a strike is. To me, that's people bunking off work to go and protest. That's how I understand it. They've used the word strike maybe unwisely. Maybe it's a bit of a poor messaging, but they've used the word strike. And this is the response from our hairless leader.
Work that day as part of this National Day of Action. Is that appropriate?
No, that would be illegal.
Yeah, what do you make of the fact that the Māori Party is encouraging people to take the day off work?
Oh, I think that's wrong. I think
that's different. Take the day off work. That was Mikey.
It's entirely wrong. I think you feel free to protest. That's what we have weekends for. But I just say
and just remember, you're only allowed to protest on weekends under these guys.
Te Pāti Māori, they're completely free to protest as they will, and as long as it's legal and it's peaceable and it's lawful, that's fine. But I'm not focused on that. I'm focused on making sure I deliver a budget for New Zealanders, whether they're Māori or not Māori.
Do you think employers have a right to punish any employee who strikes on Thursday?
Well, it's pretty clear what the rules are around strike action, and I would suggest to you that's not one of them.
What would you make about the image?
I just think I think it's stupid, because they're not striking, because striking involves unions, and striking is from one place, like one group, like the junior doctors are striking. It's all of the junior. It's not a strike. It's people bunking off work to go on a protest. And my question is, since when has playing hooky from work, since when is having a sick day when you're not really sick, bunking off work, ever been illegal? And my conversation today was, what's the crime? Like when something's illegal, that means it's a criminal act, right? What crime would you be charged for bunking off work to go on a protest? I can't quite figure it out. And it might be that they're getting caught up in the word strike, but we all know that's not what they're talking about. They're talking about bunking off work. But even if it was a strike and you hadn't organized a strike, and someone in a workplace stood up and said, I'm on strike today, and walked out, what's the crime? If it's illegal, what's the crime? What are they going to be charged with? What would be the charge for that crime?
Yeah, this is one of the things where Luxon is just being a complete goober over. Yes, there are laws around striking in New Zealand, which is a whole interesting thing that I found out this afternoon when I saw that clip, and I went, the fucking what? So yeah, proper legitimate employment strike action. They need notice, they need demands, it needs to be around health and safety, it needs to be around contract negotiations. That's essentially the only way that you can strike. You also can't do a sympathy strike, which I found interesting. And this is all stuff that's happened in the past, and a part of the attacks on unions and stuff like that. When you look at the history of New Zealand and you look at the Wharfies strike and that sort of thing, that's kind of where it's come from. So yeah, our goober leader is kind of technically stupidly correct.
Well, but even with that, though,
strike. If it was a strike.
But if it was a strike, right? If it was, and a whole bunch of people said, we're on strike, and they walked out of the office, what's the crime? What charges could they face in court? Now, it may be a breach of employment rules or laws or whatever, but to call something illegal means a crime has been committed.
Yeah. Yeah.
What would you charge? Let's say every Māori teacher, let's say every teacher at a secondary school in Dunedin walked off on Friday. Not saying that the school would therefore charge them, but if they wanted to, who would you make the call to? The police would come and arrest them. What's the crime, and what would they be charged with? Like, everyone gets charged with a breach of whatever the crime is. What would it be? I just think it's fucking nonsense. It seems to me someone who doesn't actually understand employment law, someone who's missing the whole mark and is so distant from reality, they think that, CEO, you do something that the CEO doesn't like, that's illegal. That's kind of what it feels like.
Yeah. You keep on saying a phrase that is quite triggering for me, Pat. What is the charge? Eating a delicious Chinese meal? Yeah, and that's the thing. If you're saying that it's illegal, exactly. Are the police going to wade in and go, Do you have permission from your employer to be here? Get in the van. It's not going to happen. So it's an empty threat.
But even if,
the other
but even
part
if
of it is, people can ask permission from their employer. I suggest you don't do that. I suggest have a mental health day, have a long lunch break, whatever you feel is within your wheelhouse to support this. I urge everyone to do it. You know, and the fact that he's standing there going, it's illegal, you can only protest on the weekend.
Fuck, what's that all about?
As a retail worker, I can go, what's a fucking weekend, you twat?
That's a good one. Read that one out. I like that one.
Yeah. Did Luxon mean to say that it was a sin?
Thank you, Daniel. Very good.
We couldn't, but it's the classic thing of protest of all things. You know, it's got to be respectful. We can't have harsh language, and you definitely can't inconvenience anyone. It's got to be, you can protest, but you can't inconvenience anyone. And you certainly can't affect productivity. Yeah. Why won't you horrible people think of the GDP?
Workers. Why will you workers give your manager a headache? I just looked up illegal at it in the dictionary. Contrary to or forbidden by law, especially criminal law. Now, the one thing I'll add before we get off our secondary tangent, Chewy, is you said, what would the police charge you with? Because actually, the police or people commit crimes, make illegal acts every single day and don't get charges. But if you wanted to follow the letter of the law, there could be a charge. So in this instance, even let's be generous and say, okay, so let's say it was illegal to do this, because that's the word he's used, illegal, but no one's going to get charged because, you know, what's a workplace going to do? But following the technical law, that means if you wanted to, like the person speeding, if you wanted to, there would be something to face. If it's illegal, if it's forbidden by law, especially criminal law, what's the charge? It's just, it shows idiocy to me. I just think it's ridiculous. But let's go and have a look at the rest of the story. This is
comments.
Sorry. Yeah,
when I saw that comment, my first reaction was, well, that just makes me want to strike even harder.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Listen, now this is the full story. We'll see some more of that clip again. Let's check out what they're saying about it.
Buckle up, Prime Minister.
Buckle up.
Te Pāti Māori has issued a warning to Christopher Luxon ahead of widespread protests planned for Budget Day on Thursday. But the coalition government had its own warning to those thinking of taking part in the movement. And it's not the only big issue they're facing. Senior political reporter Benedict Collins explains.
It's not long now till Budget Day.
There's just 2 days to go.
2 more sleeps to go.
But Te Pāti Māori is aiming to make it a nightmare.
Not give too much to this Pākehā government with their Pākehā budget for their Pākehā economy.
They're running a big campaign calling on their supporters to protest across the country.
We're asking for a Māori strike and our people should turn out.
No, that would be illegal.
Yeah, what do you make of the fact that
What's the crime?
Māori Party is encouraging people to take the day off work?
I think that's wrong. I think that's entirely wrong. I think, you know, you feel free to protest. That's what we have weekends for. But
A little later, the Prime Minister getting a first-hand warning.
What is your message to protesters who might show up here outside?
Buckle up. Buckle up, Prime Minister.
A strike is illegal unless it's in your employment contract. So if they want to go on,
But it's the ACT MP Todd Stevenson who Labour's been urging to buck up his ideas. ACT taking the unusual step of sending down their press secretary to snoop on Chris Hipkins' press conference today.
It's a totally unacceptable conflict of interest. And I'm very surprised at the somewhat lax attitude that the
dude in the background doesn't move very much, does he? He's standing pretty still for quite a while.
Prime Minister seems to be taking about.
The ACT MP held shares in multiple pharmaceutical companies while closely assisting David Seymour, who's the minister overseeing the drug buying agency Pharmac.
What we fully recognise that sometimes it's the perception rather than the reality of a conflict that matters. And that's why, just to be totally transparent and clear, he's gone the extra mile and got rid of the shares.
But it's just the perception of a conflict of interest, and it's important that's dealt with.
Clearly.
Fair enough just to get. Well, I mean, we don't know that yet, because has he actually profited from it? Did he use them did he use his information to kind of inside trade? We don't know any of that. But remember, we criticised them when there was perceptions of conflicts of interest, because that's what they said about the Public Interest Journalism Fund and Labour. And not that this, makes it okay, but let's drop it down by 1% and say, if it is a perception, at least they're doing something about it. I mean, no more credit than that, because they are, for maybe the first time, being consistent with what they accused Labor of having to do as well. Although it may not be a perception, it may be an actual conflict of interest. But so I'm with you.
Really not keen for any distractions in the government's big week.
Benedict's with us now. Kia ora, Benedict. It's still not clear whether one of the government's key health initiatives will even go ahead.
That's right. During the election campaign last year, Chris Luxon, he promised that if his government was elected, that they would build a new medical school at Waikato. And the plan was that by 2030, around 220 new doctors a year would be graduating from this new university to help ease our doctor shortage. Now, during the government coalition negotiations, the ACT Party came in and they said, hey, look, absolutely, this project can go ahead, but we want to see a cost-benefit analysis first to make sure that this project stacks up financially. Now, today, I asked the Health Minister, Shane Reti, where this cost-benefit analysis was at. Here's what he had to say.
Healthcare sector dot the I's and cross the T's on the cost benefit analysis. We're spending a lot of time in getting it absolutely right. So just taking a little bit of time, we want to make sure that this is absolutely pristine.
Who is doing it?
I'm not in a position to comment on that at the moment because there's still some decisions around that, but just that we have taken some time to make sure we get it.
Has it started?
No, what's happened is the terms of reference have been formed. And
so that was interesting, eh? I mean, he's not really forthcoming on that. We're going to talk about that in a second. Let me just also ask a very quick question. Is there a dude with a mohawk walking behind him at some stage? Did you see that? There.
Are you seeing punks?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Nice. Infiltrated.
Dude with a mohawk? Looks like he's got a suit on and a mohawk. Yep. There you go. Yeah. So anyway, Te Pāti Māori holding their protest on Thursday, budget day. We've pitched to Te Pāti Māori to come and tell us all about it and stuff. I haven't heard back from them. We may still do tomorrow. We'll see what happens. This idea from this government to say you're allowed to protest on the weekend, little people. We'll give that our seal of approval. You're allowed to protest, but certainly not Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, because that's when we need you to be good workers and providing widgets for your overlords, right? You can't leave that. You can't stop making widgets for your overlords. So in the weekend, like maybe Sunday, because we'd like you to work Saturday as well, that's the approved time by this government to actually protest. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. Look, I plan to go. Look, lots of places have sick days. Lots of places have mental health days. Lots of places have sympathetic bosses, although you'd have to play that by ear, I would imagine. If you're able to go, I encourage people to go. I think this is important.
Yeah.
And yes, like apart from Luxon's ridiculous, it's illegal. You're all going to jail. You're all going to the naughty room. Look, for a lot of places, it would be a breach of your employment contract. And you need to weigh up whether getting written up is worth it to you. I would say on balance, yes. For me, it is. And so I'll be going. I know here in Dunedin, there's a rally. Most major centres are having a rally, and all the information is out there on Facebook and other social media things. I think you should. We've been saying this consistently for a long time now, is that these guys want to split Pākehā Māori apart. We need to stand together. And we need to stand for the vision of New Zealand that we have.
Yep.
And I think it's certainly for the people that watch this show, our idea of what this country should be varies enormously from our current government.
Yeah.
It wipes out decades of progress. And it wipes out decades of progress, some of which was done by National. So under the King government, there was still progress made. And that's the thing that's crazy. But, National doesn't have a memory. Some protest National likes. Some illegal protest action National likes.
Yeah.
Your average person wouldn't get away with driving a tractor up the steps of Parliament. That's probably illegal.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know
a motor vehicle.
I know it's a side note a little bit, but just remember, you know, the government at the moment, and this will probably come up more next week because this week will be focused on the budget by lots of people, is there are 60-ish legislation, 60 policies, 60 laws in New Zealand that reference the Treaty of Waitangi or the Treaty of Waitangi principles. This government's actually looking to get rid of the reference to the Treaty of Waitangi from many of those policies. I think they've identified about 22 of them. It's a massive story. They're not doing it right now, but it's coming up on the books for them to vote on. This government wants to, if you don't like the idea of thinking about white supremacist or European supremacist or whatever ideologies, then how do you explain away a government trying to delete references to the founding document, which is the partnership between the Crown and Māori? They want to get that out of legislation. What would be a better word for it than, I mean, you know, Western supremacy, corporate supremacy? What would be a better? I mean, I'm not actually saying this as a piss take. If you're uncomfortable, some people with calling these guys a right-wing, you know, white supremacist, fascist government, like some people do. See you tomorrow night, Bomber. You know, what would be comfortable to call a government that wants to get rid of all of these things that Māori have either fought for, or, to use Luxon's favourite word, are entitled to based on that contract they signed up to? What would it be? Maybe you've got some ideas. See, when we start spitting truth, Chewy has to drop out because he can't handle the truth. You can't handle the truth, Chewy, can you?
I really
do
need to change that keybind. There is a term, Western chauvinist.
Sure.
You know, and look, it's. I just think, like, on the balance of things, isn't it curious that all of our major institutions, all of the best way of doing things in this country is from a European, Western, white perspective? Like, there are no other good ideas to have unless we get them from Australia or England or Canada or America.
England. Yeah.
You know, all of these things. It's just on balance. Isn't that weird?
It's funny,
There's so many cases of, like, I especially like when it comes to history, right? There was a thing down here, an archaeological thing, where they found Kumara pits way further south than any researcher, Western researcher, thought possible. But Māori had stories about this. Yeah. They even told them where they would be, and they went, nah, no, couldn't grow kumara that far south. And then they found them in the area that Māori always said they were. And we keep doing this. We keep ignoring the stories from the people that live here, like they're just stories. You can't possibly have recorded history unless you write it down. There's a
really interesting, and I'm going to butcher it a little bit, because people talk about, you know, Māori, it was a spoken language, it wasn't written, yada, yada, yada. How do they know what happened 800 years ago? There's a really interesting thing that was found out in the east coast of Australia, that Aboriginal people, Indigenous culture over there, have this story that's been told for generations and generations and generations. You know, something like about an earthquake or about a tidal wave or something about a particular reef in a particular area. And in the last 5 years, they discovered the reef. With science and technology, they can now see where that event happened under the water that, you know, the Indigenous people of Australia have been talking about for hundreds, if not thousands of years. So the way it was passed on still rang true to what science found in the last, I'm going to say decade, because, you know, COVID has done this for the last 5 years. So it was probably 10 years ago and it feels like 2. But yeah, it was a wake up call to look at Indigenous storytelling and passing on of knowledge, that it's that the oral way of doing it isn't necessarily as flimsy and should be discounted as quickly as many with Western supremacy would seem to want us have to do. So
before we skip on to say to something else, do want to circle back to this ACT guy that was up to his eyeballs in pharmaceutical shares. I've solved this already. No sitting MP should have an investment portfolio with shares and property in it. You want to be an MP for this country, you liquidate everything. You put it in a savings account as cash and you leave it the fuck alone. Like, it is very clear. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle that you sit on. If you have investments, they can compromise you.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to look at it from a selfish point of view, it's something that your opponents can point to and go, oh, look at the naughty boy. You know, just liquidate it. Put it in a term deposit until you vote it out or something. Like, you're on the public wage. That's what I want you focused on.
Hey, you know how I just butchered that story? Here, let's just show it. So just to give people an idea. Revealed how Indigenous Australian storytelling accurately records sea level rises. Ready for this? 7,000 years ago. Sea level rises 7,000 years ago. And this was from 2015, so I wasn't far off with my 10 years. Distinctive cross-checking traditional helps explain extraordinary accuracy in 21 stories about dramatic sea level rises between 7,000 and 18,000 years ago. Indigenous stories of dramatic sea level rises across Australia date back more than 7,000 years in a continuous oral tradition without parallel anywhere in the world, according to new research. Anyway, there you go. So that was an example of one of the ones I was talking about. So it's sea level rises rather than a flood or a tidal wave.
It comes up all the time. Like
18,000 years.
How could Polynesians possibly navigate the Pacific without a sextant and a compass? Well, they did. But the Western point of view is that they must have just got blown willy-nilly from island to island. And that was the prevailing view for hundreds of years. And it's only now that we're going, oh, actually, if we listen to them, they tell us how they do it. It's crazy, but they did it. And it's just remarkable. And then whenever a European discovers that knowledge, it's the discovery. And it's like, no, you can't, much like a country, you can't discover somewhere where people already are.
Yeah.
You arrived late.
Your visitors. Your tourists, basically.
You shouldn't get naming rights.
Yeah.
You arrive here second when someone's given it a name. I'm looking at
that's
you,
a very good point. All right. Hey, let's move on to this. I've got a story as well about another. It's kind of featuring our hairless leader, talking a bit about what the budget's going to deliver. I'm going to play you two parts of this. The first part is about why is the tax calculator being taken down, and really trying to press the Prime Minister into, will the results of the new tax calculator meet the old tax calculator? And we all know, right, if you haven't read the introduction to this episode, you'll get it anyway. He doesn't answer a single thing. Now, but I want to show you this shell game that they're doing. And I'll show you what it is shortly. Let's first of all have a look at Jenny May talking to him about tax calculators and also about tax cuts, what they will be.
Yeah, but I do want to ask about the tax calculator that was taken down. Why?
Oh, only because now we're in government, Jenny May, it becomes an official tax calculator that will appear on the Treasury website and be available.
It kind of feels like a valid answer. Whether it is or isn't, I don't know, but it kind of feels like a valid answer. Okay, so let's move on to the next part of the conversation. How will that tax calculator function?
Available for everybody to see on budget day. I just encourage all your viewers on budget day, use the tax calculator, go in, put in all your numbers and see what you'll be able to receive as help and relief.
Okay, so can you confirm if there will be any changes to your tax plan compared to what you proposed before the election?
So that's a pretty easy question. I get it. You're official government now. Tax calculator's got to be official. Will it be the same? That's all we're asking. Yes or no? Will it be the same?
Well, all I can say, Jenny May, with budget sensitivity and just 2 days out, you'll just have to wait till Thursday.
Budget sensitivity. Remember that wording, budget sensitivity.
But I think we've signalled very strongly that we're delivering tax relief to New Zealanders. We made that commitment to them and we're following through on that commitment. Well, Jenny May, as you know, under budget, it'll be revealed on budget day, but I think I've been pretty clear. We're going to honour our commitment that we made and we know.
Okay, that sounds like he sounds like what he's saying is, I can't really say because restraints around the budget, but we are going to do what we said we did. That's what it sounds like he's saying.
We're going to deliver tax relief to low and middle income working New Zealanders.
Okay, speaking of commitments then, can I go back to October last year? The Finance Minister, Nicola Willis, told New Zealanders a family with young kids could expect up to $250 a fortnight back, but it was revealed only 3,000 families would have been eligible for that full amount. How many families are going to be eligible for the top amount under Thursday's budget?
Good question.
Yeah, look, I'm sorry, Jenny May, but we just can't get into the details of that until Thursday. That's why we have budget day on Thursday. But all I can say is that we are determined under this government to make sure we have good financial management, and that has enabled us to deliver tax relief to low and middle income working New Zealanders. We have more to say about it on Thursday, but as you can understand, under the rules, there's budget sensitivity, and I can't talk about that until Thursday.
Yeah.
Okay, so you get that? There's rules, budget sensitivity. I can't. So what he's saying, he's basically said we're going to do what we said we're going to do, right? But he's going to look, I'm really sorry, Jenny May. I'm really sorry. Anything that's in the budget, we just can't talk about because there's budget sensitivity. There's rules that stop me from talking about the budget, and I just can't talk about it. So what I'm wondering is when a viewer asks the question, why the fuck does he then answer it?
And this is around the rising cost of groceries. Stacey Lee from Wairoa has those concerns. We also had Ripeka Lessels, who was the principal of a kura in Kawero, who joined us this morning. She said she's not seen the levels of homelessness that she's seeing at the moment. Also, food is a huge issue. She suggested GST off food. Is that a potential? Could we see?
There's a question about the budget, Chewy. Now, remember, GST off food, is that going to be in the budget? No, look, there's rules, budget sensitivity. I can't really talk about it.
Is something possible like that in Thursday's budget?
No, you won't, because that's a very complicated thing to do, and that's not the best way to approach it. The best way to approach it is to get inflation down and to make people... Hang
on. You can't answer questions about what's in the budget. Budget sensitivity, rules. You can't talk about it. These are the words you used. GST off fruit and veggies, off food. That's definitely not in the budget. Wonder why, Chewy. I wonder why he's happy to talk about that. Yet when it comes to things like tax cuts, which they made some big promises about before the election, all of a sudden there are rules around us talking about budget stuff early.
People's lives, daily lives, much better and food cheaper. What's been happening is you've seen inflation peak at 7%. It's now come down to 4%. That's good improvement. We want to get it below 3%.
Sounds like he's actually quite happy to talk about this part of the conversation. But tax cuts, budget sensitivity, rules, I can't talk about it. GST off fresh fruit and veggies? No, that's definitely not happening. So you're definitive about that, and you refuse to talk about tax cuts. Is that because there's some pretty shitty news coming about those tax cuts, Chewy, and you don't want to get into it right now? I just want
to talk about dessert and not the veggies. I mean, the annoying thing is, I agree with his answer on GST off food. Like, sure. I've seen things about it. It's a poor metric, and we've talked about supermarkets just pocketing it.
I didn't play it for that. I didn't play it for the policy. I played it to show him clearly answering the question with no equivocation, just saying it's not going to be in the budget. Straight after he spent 9 freaking hours saying we're not allowed to talk about what's in the budget. Yep. That's why I played it.
Absolutely. I just wanted to acknowledge that point in his answer as well.
Sure.
But yes, no consistency. So, and I guess in that case, entirely consistent for him to have no consistency.
Are you saying the only thing he's consistent on is his inconsistency?
Correct.
Interesting. Very, very frustrating. I mean, we all know he doesn't answer questions, but literally in the space of 2 or 3 minutes to go from, look, Jenny, I'm so sorry, we're not allowed to talk about anything in the budget sensitivity, to that definitely won't be in the budget. It's like, how dumb. I was about to say something that would have reflected me saying how dumb is that particular host. I'm not saying that, but how dumb is the media in general? I mean, as soon as I watched it, I went, hang on, why are you answering this? Like what I would have loved to have seen is the reporter or the Jenny May going, hang on, why are you able to answer this one, but you won't answer about tax? Why is this not budget sensitivity? But no one in the media does that because they want access, in my opinion. Honest held belief. Anything in the chat or anything you want to get to, Chewy?
I'm just angrily hammering out a reply to someone on Twitch. Apparently what we should do is we should do a pre-budget show analysing what Michael Cullen said in the way that he talks. That would be interesting and up-to-date because that would make us unbiased.
Because we want to talk about 2010, do we?
Yep, apparently. Yeah.
Well, actually, probably if you want to check us out and see our we are biased. I mean, I'm fucking sick of this. We're biased.
That's what I'm saying. We have never said that we do not have bias. And my whole thing is, if someone tells you that they are unbiased, immediately distrust them.
Yeah.
Everybody has a bias. It's whether they acknowledge it or not, or hide it or not. We are on the left. Also, we're a current events commentary show. You can rewind a year. You can go back through all of our videos and see what we said about the budget announcements last year.
Yeah,
if you
because
we're not doing a show on Michael Cullen's budget.
Even though we are lefty, liberal, soy boy, neck beards, any others?
Garage Marxists.
Garage Marxists, etc., etc., etc. Even though we're all of those things, we're also fair. You've seen it tonight. At least they said it's the perception. And that's what they said last time. At least they said it. And then they filled that with a bucket full of shit around it. But there was one thing that we gave them some credit for being. Well, I gave them some credit for. Chewy was grinding his teeth. I could hear him through my headphones at the time. Hey, look, speaking of grinding your teeth, Chewy, I haven't seen this yet, other than the introduction to go. My mouth dropped open. My jaw was ajar. Which is such a strange thing to say, ajar to being open. Never really understood that. Let us have a look. Come here. Get on your mat. Good girl. Stay there. Sorry. That's my daughter. That wasn't really my daughter. It was my dog. Let's have a look at this story. This was breaking news. We haven't teased this at all, but we're going to do it because it's really important. It's really important. It's important for a couple of things, right? This is how Bill English got to be in charge of the Kāinga Ora review that was just released. Now, it's really important for a couple of reasons. One is transparency, so you know how this government operates when appointing the Old Boys Network. But secondly is to know that they did nothing wrong according to the rules in this. That's the other thing that's incredibly important to know. This is not going to result in any kind of change because there were no rules broken in this. They're allowed to do it. When I say they're allowed to, I mean all politicians, whatever color the government, is allowed to do this. A bit of a text message, okay, you're in charge, done. It's not. There's nothing wrong with it as far as the handbook to Parliament goes, Chewy. That's the other thing to be aware of in this fucking story.
Newshub can reveal Sir Bill English was signed on to head a $500,000 review of Kāinga Ora through a couple of simple text messages with the minister, weeks before Chris Bishop even got cabinet sign-off for the review.
Kāinga Ora's response.
Did you get that? So he had the job before cabinet even said yes to the idea.
To the scathing report says they were hardly consulted. And Newshub has got hold of text messages showing it was the minister's preference that they had no involvement. Political editor Jenna Lynch has this exclusive report.
Billboard duty with Sir Bill English and Chris Bishop back in 2017. 6 years on, out with the staple guns and in with the calculators. Sir Bill appointed to undertake a review of Kāinga Ora, which when completed was highly critical.
Kāinga Ora is underperforming and not financially viable.
And Newshub can reveal how the former PM came to head the $500,000 probe we've obtained the text exchange.
So I'm already laughing because if you don't laugh about this one, you'll cry to it. Honestly, it's just, okay. A CEO, right, sells his business now as one of the reasons to run the country. That would involve things like hiring people, due diligence, putting people through the ringer to make sure they're the best person for the job. That would all be a business practice. No, not so much.
The first contact is direct from Sir Bill. Chris, will there be a review of KO? Bishop replies, we're going to do an independent review into finances, performance, cost, etc. Commence it ASAP, hopefully get terms of reference and reviewers sorted before Christmas. Sir Bill said, I could help with that. The response from Bishop, excellent. Let's do that.
Excellent. Let's do that. Oh my God. Like every political party, every political party uses their team to do these sorts of things. But if any other, I don't give a crap if you're green or red or orange or blue or black or whatever the fuck act is, pink or yellow, something like that at the moment. Pinkos, yeah, they're the pinkos, that's about right. It's just if anyone was said, this is how they got their position. Trevor Mallard, he's over in Ireland, isn't he? I think it was all through that.
Trevor Mallard,
Trevor Mallard. You imagine what the National now government then party would have done if Trevor Mallard had got appointed that position through a couple of text messages with Cindy, with old Cindy. You know, they would have been apoplectic in their faux rage. So they've just talked, and we've actually just given them credit a little bit for the appearance of a conflict of interest. This is the appearance of corruption. Now, if what matters most is the appearance, not even a conflict of interest, then surely what matters most is the appearance, not even if it is corrupt. Because it's certainly the appearance of jobs for the boys, old boys network. Let someone approach you about an idea. It's the appearance of a corrupt system.
They are not even bothering to hide it. This isn't the case of like, oh, we want someone to do an independent review who wants it. Okay, we've got 4 contenders and we've checked out the tender process and all of this sort of stuff. And we've selected Sir Bill English, our old mate, former leader, for a $500,000 jobs program to cut something that we know he hates and that we hate as well. It's not even the fig leaf of going through a process. It is a private text message of like, hey, do you want to gut KO? I can fucking help you. I hate him. I hate public ownership.
This is going to get worse, Joey. We're not finished yet. Because what comes next is Sir Bill English basically setting out his terms of reference. Remember, he's approached Bishop. He's made the offer, I could do it. Bishop said yes, and the next bit is Bill English saying, well, this is how I want to do it. You might want to step away from the microphone when you see this bit, just between me and you.
Did you follow proper process in appointing Bill English?
Absolutely.
The Let's Do This message was sent on the 29th of November. The review was only taken to the Cabinet 100-day Plan Committee to sign off 2 weeks later on December 13. You said, excellent, let's do that before you even took it to Cabinet.
Yeah, well, that I was expressing interest in getting him to do the review.
Yeah, that's right. You were offering him the job and doing the review is what you were doing. Keep going.
Yeah, well, I was expressing interest in getting him to do the review.
It doesn't sit right. And everything suggests that this was a stitch-up and that the outcomes were predetermined.
A day after Bishop gave the green light, Sir Bill issued some terms of his own. I will help if it's a short, sharp review. No public submissions or field trips. Bishop agrees, saying, definitely not. 3 people, you and 2 others. He goes on to say, no involvement from KO. Independent.
Oh, that's what they meant by independent.
No involvement from KO. Bill English approaches Chris Bishop.
Not independent of government fuckery.
Independent of KO.
Independent from the organisation then. Right. Oh, okay.
So we do this. Bill English goes to Chris Bishop and says, no, are you guys going to look at KO? Kāinga Ora? Bishop goes, it's part of the plan. English goes, oh, I'd be keen to do that. Bishop goes, okay. English goes, I don't want to go around the traps. I don't want to have to answer any submissions. I don't want to do anything like that. I want it to be as short as possible. So I earn the most per hour as I can. Bishop goes, no, that'll do. And don't worry about it. We won't involve Kāinga Ora in your review of Kāinga Ora at all. The appearance of what again was that, Joey?
We're going to have to crack out Bill's old nickname. The Dipton double dipping dipshit.
Oh, yeah, well, that's because he was claiming to live in Dipton when he was really spending all of his time, and his kids were at school in Wellington.
It was ye old National Accommodation Supplement rot.
Yeah. Yeah, it was an entitlement, is what it was. Let's get to the end of this, shall we?
He was entitled to it.
Right. The Housing Minister saying there would be no involvement from Kāinga Ora in the review of Kāinga Ora.
Did he advise Sir Bill English not to involve Kāinga Ora in the review?
No, and they were involved in the review. He met with Kāinga Ora.
How on earth can you review an organisation without actually talking to the organisation?
He didn't want an extended period of consultation and roadshows.
Who gives a shit what Bill English wanted? Man, I can't wait to get my next job. Let's say there's a job with a radio station and they want me to work by breakfast show 6 till 10. I go, yeah, cool. I'll do 8 till 9. And then the boss goes, well, he didn't want to work the full 4 hours, so we're going to pay him just to work an hour a day. It's like, what? Who gives a shit what he wanted? That's why you put this kind of thing out to tender and you do due diligence and you find the best person for the job. You've got the best person for the job that wants to do as little work as possible. That's that kind of best person you've got. You.
So, if he's not involved with the organisation, how did he act? What did he review? What did he see? Didn't talk to anyone.
Kāinga Ora talks about that a bit here. We'll show you.
To the organisation.
He didn't want an extended period of consultation and roadshows around the country. They did, as part of the review, go and talk to a whole range of people, from developers, construction.
Except for Kāinga Ora.
People that talked to Kāinga Ora themselves extensively.
Except in a letter to Sir Bill ahead of the release of his final report, the acting chair of Kāinga Ora's board said there was relatively limited engagement with our organisation, leading to some review conclusions appearing to be based on analysis informed by anecdotes.
Vibes!
We said this exact thing last night listening to Erica Stanford. Every time a minister, and I guess this is going to be a former prime minister, wants to do something, they cite anecdotes. Now we're finding out that they even cite anecdotes to make conclusions in a freaking review of Kāinga Ora. What are they doing? And I think you're right, Joey. 2 things. It is just so blatant. There's no pretense anymore. But the second thing, as I said at the start, nothing they've done is wrong when it comes to like the handbooks and the rules of Parliament. They're allowed to do it this way. That's the other thing that needs to change.
That's unheard. Like this mate's job program. Like, you're in Parliament or you're out. I'm uncomfortable with all of it. Like, it doesn't matter what side. When somebody's out. They're all the way out. They're Jacinda out. They're gone.
So here's a question, and look, fair's fair. This would be a question for the other side if they were in. Here's a question, journalists. Ask the Prime Minister who they have appointed to a position of relevance, to a position of significance, to do a review or be in charge of something that used to be a Labour minister or a Greens minister. Who have they appointed? And if it's no one, then that perception thing starts to rear its ugly head again. Now, as I said, if it was Labour in this position, exactly the same question, right? But I think that's a fair question for the Prime Minister. Let's shoot a bit more of this in.
Conclusions appearing to be based on analysis informed by anecdotes.
Well, that's their perspective. It's not mine.
It's an absolute shocker. The whole thing's a stitch-up, no doubt.
Do you see how it looks like you've just appointed someone who's going to tell you what you want to hear?
I reject that utterly. Sir Bill is a former Prime Minister. He's a former Minister of Finance, deeply experienced in the housing system.
The report should be called Bill's Reckons.
Kāinga Ora's letter to Sir Bill also took exception with a number of the report's findings, alleging there were many factual errors. Their list of errors is 3 pages long.
Jesus.
There you go. So the story is... They do, it's jobs for your mates, all politicians, all political parties. But what we've now seen with this, maybe it's just the advent of technology. It's like a quick couple of text messages. You've got the job. Here's the salary. Now I'll go get it run through cabinet 2 weeks in the future from now.
Right, just think about the others that are still in the mix here. Stephen Joyce, Paula Bennett, Simon Bridges. They're all still banging around, and they're all politics adjacent, or they're being employed on jobs programs by their mates that are still in the house. It's fucking bullshit. Like, you've got corruption. You've got people having off the books meetings with mining executives. You've got mining companies making donations. You've got it's chronic. You're right. It's in the handbook. They can do it. These guys know the handbook to the point where they can circumvent this stuff, and they can just go. Like, do you remember Claire Curran got ran out of town on a fucking rail
because of a meeting?
What was it? 2 meetings.
Yeah.
And then you've got Shane Jones having full-on dinners and just going, I'll put it in the book retrospectively. There's a reason that it's supposed to be on the book. Paula Bennett, Barmac board chair. Fantastic. What's their experience with that? Is she involved in the pharmacy business?
And she sells
Wasn't
houses.
She a real estate cheerleader?
Yep.
Breakfast show guest?
Sells houses and did radio for about 3 minutes.
The only thing she should be in charge of is a place that decommissions ladders.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. I got that. I understood that joke.
That was very clever.
It was quite not bad.
But yeah, it's just, look, I would be, I just don't like it. I don't like these people that are still circling around and putting their hands out for public money through contracts and reviews and consultation. I just don't like it. It doesn't matter what side it is, but these guys are being particularly egregious and particularly blatant about it.
Yeah. Yep. And the thing that feels most grubby about this is Bill English said, "Gimme." Like, if Cabinet had sat around and gone, who should we get to do this? And they'd had a conversation and they'd gone, oh, Bill would be pretty good at this. And then they'd reached out. Even that would be a level of sort of, finding the best person for the job. But Bill English texted Chris Bishop. And in a case of 2 or 3 text messages, he said he'd do it. Bishop said, okay. So this is the opposite of how business should be run. And I think the opposite of actually how government should be run. And this is where we come back to that point that they're allowed to do this. And that's actually another issue we've got to address at some stage. These guys won't do it. We need a government that's actually going to look at the bullshit parts of government and how it runs that are allowed, but let's put it this way, are immoral or bad practice, and get rid of them as well. Talk about repealing stuff, mate. That's what you should be repealing.
Like, I get it. New Zealand's a small country, right? So it might be that somebody that has been a political leader or a political operator is the best person to do it.
Sure.
But this is why there should be such rules about transparency and such rules about making sure that he's not the only horse in the race, and making sure that the money is fair, out in the open. Because when it gets all murky and it's like, oh, I just went into my bloody contacts list and picked someone that helped me out, that's corruption. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. That is something that we need to be aware of, and we need to be furious about when it's there.
Okay, here's something for you, and I'm just looking on the Education Gazette to see if I can find one. I'm pretty sure, there'll be teachers watching right now, tell me if I'm right. I'm pretty sure that most government departments, if not all, I know certainly within the teaching field it used to be, they must advertise the positions. They must by law. Because what you find with primary schools, and I used to find this back in the day, unless it's changed, it would have an advert for a job and then it would say something like position filled. But they would still have to advertise it. So once again, how come a minister can just do a handshake, the secret handshake with their right friend and the jam of the shoulders, and then they've got a job, yet potentially the ministry that they're over has to advertise for a position by law. So why don't they have to advertise for the person, even if they've got Bill, position filled? in charge of the review of Kāinga Ora. Do you know what I mean? It's like, this is the fucking government that keeps talking about making everyone the same under the law. Well, here's an example of how you're not. Why aren't you getting rid of this? It's completely different to how other government entities hire and fire people. You're not the same as us. You have a privilege. You get treated better than the rest of us. Why aren't we flattening that field out first before you go after solo mums who live in South Auckland and whose kids might get into medical school for a reason of proportionality within this country?
Yep. It's fucked. It's fucked. Everything's fucked.
People are saying in the chat, that's how I knew it, Pat. Anyone's a current teacher, you can always correct us on that. But look, even if it wasn't, it certainly was like that in the past.
Look,
there we go. J-Max says all government agencies must advertise jobs. So if government agencies must advertise them, why doesn't government have to advertise them?
Yeah. Look, it's the same in the private sector as well. I know a lot of organizations will, like, even if they have someone in mind for a promotion, they still put it out there. So yeah, it's obviously best standard, but yeah. No, let's get Bill English, someone that was famously helmed a massive state asset sell-off, to see if we have too many state assets. Fucking ridiculous.
Kiwi Bird is just reminding everyone in the super chat. Thank you for the super chat. Please remember to write your submissions, guys.
Oh yes, that's tomorrow. Yes,
is that tomorrow?
Yeah.
You want to bring it up while I go through some of these?
I will put up the link. Yeah.
Okay, do that. Mr. Arvids says Luxon is so full of it. He has 7 fucking houses. Biggest conflict of interest, especially with the $2.9 billion landlord tax. Yeah, well, that's exactly right. Government actually made inroads into the last government and into the polls by convincing everyone that they had a conflict of interest over the media and over journalists, right? Yet these guys have blatant conflicts of interest over things like housing. Yet no one talks about that. Look, no one talks about that, including Labour, who should be talking about it, right? But no one seems to be, because it's not election cycle and they don't need to make a good headline. They just sit there for a couple of years and then they'll start fighting them at the end of 2025 or something like that. Luchify says, shout out to the sister from Pornaki who had a great catch up with me when she spotted my sweatshirt on Willis Street. If you're watching. Oh, nice.
Nice.
I think we've got some merch coming up next week as well, guys, just so you know. We kind of try and do it once a month, and I'm a bit behind. We'll get some more of the stuff out there for you. $5 here from Luchify. Thank you for your super chat. We'll see this time and time again. The process will never be robust enough to safeguard citizens against a profound lack of character. And Peter saying, thank you for your super chat there. One reason for the Nats recruitment shenanigans is that reduces the chance for a fait accompli, wrapping shit up before opposition can mobilize. And I didn't even pre-read that, and I got fait accompli right. My little dyslexic brain made it all the way through, Chewy. Yeah, I actually think now this is not necessarily this government, yeah. So let's be clear about that. But this idea that we talked about last week, where if you work in a government department, your contract says you can't criticize that government department. However, the minister of that government department can tear it down as much as they want. That's a problem. It's hypocrisy. It's not right. If you're looking for a job within government, at a government department, a teacher, probably a nurse and stuff as well, they must advertise the jobs. If you're a government, you just send a text to your mate and that's how they get given jobs. There's just so much to sort out in this political world that doesn't even come into bias or ideologies. It's just bullshit. It's bullshit if Labour did it, and it's bullshit that National is doing it.
Yeah. Look, we were talking about submissions, and the one that we're talking about is this one here. It closes 11:59 p.m. tomorrow. If you're not across this is basically the government mandating that councils who have already gone through a process of deciding whether they have Māori ward on their council or not, the government is mandating that they put that to a public referendum. I have a big personal issue with trying to do a public referendum about a treaty obligation and about race relations. It is just majority rule, which does not work when you're dealing with a minority group.
It is quite lucky, though, that it's quite lucky that Bill English isn't in charge of this, because if Bill English was in charge of it, there'd be no submissions at all. So we're quite lucky with that, Chewy.
Yeah. As I've also mentioned with public submissions, this government has been pretty free and easy with the time limit, sometimes giving people as little as 48 hours to make a public submission. If you've never done it before, it is not super hard. You just have to put down your thoughts, why you are against this, why it's a bad piece of legislation, why you don't support it. There are plenty of groups out there that have example texts and that sort of thing. I haven't had time to put my one up yet, but I will be doing so before the show tomorrow, hopefully. So I'll put mine up on our Discord for people to have a look at. But you do not have to be a lawyer. You do not have to talk in some secret parliament language. You just need to speak plainly. So, yeah, anything to shift the needle. This is one of those things that they get a gauge of how the public feel. I think it's well worth doing. Councils have already done the work. There's an open letter from more than 50 mayors against this already. So, yeah, this is part of how our democracy works. I say get involved.
Get involved. Get behind. Get involved. All right, Joe, is there any other chats you want to put up there? Because I think we're pretty much done for the night.
Yeah. NZ Doom says, keen to see rent data at the end of the year, RE downward pressure. My rent's going up $40 a week in July. My landlord's tax breaks just over $5,000 a year for his 3 properties.
I think NZ Doom's saying it's not true. I don't believe NZ Doom, because that's not what the Prime Minister told us. Prime Minister told us that the landlords will obviously pass it on and that there's downward pressure on rent. So I think NZ Doom's he probably means his rent's going down. It's probably a typo by $40 per week. That would be my guess.
Look, I have some advice. Maybe this will help. Flick your landlord an email and just ask permission to build a small personal hobby guillotine in your backyard. And also, when are you coming around for the next flat inspection? See if that changes things. DIY Guru pointing out that $500,000 from the Emergency Housing Fund directly to Bill English's pocket. That's where they got some of the money, from the Emergency Transitional Housing Fund, which is for people in dire need of emergency housing. They gave that to Bill English. Let that sit. Does that feel good? It shouldn't. Everyone in National is fine with that. It's fucking weird. Getting back to the hikoi on Thursday. I'm losing my job anyway. What are they going to do if I strike? Double fire me?
No, they're going to put you in jail because it's illegal. Police will be around tomorrow.
Look, that's a good point for people that are in public sector roles, right? They know they're on the chopping block already. I'd say you're gonna see a lot of people. Big protest in Wellington.
Be interesting, eh?
Big protest in Wellington, and I saw someone in Dunedin Reddit talking about the hikoi, and it's just like, who's gonna go? Who's gonna go? And there's a bunch of people going. There's a bunch of people going in a small place like Dunedin, and I think, we saw how much Te Pāti Māori were able to mobilize people earlier in the year and how quickly they were able to do it. I think they're going to do it again better this time around.
Yeah. Yep. We good?
Pam Rush says, speaking about breaking the law, Nicola Willis is getting her kids off school so they can see her mum giving the world's worst budget.
Hang on. We've been told by this government, like, days off school. Remember, there was a lot of fuss made about not going on holidays, that sort of thing.
I wonder if she's brought it up with the upcoming, the future deputy mayor, whatever he wants to be called, deputy leader, whatever he wants to be called. Has you run it past Seymour? Confusing. Confusing.
All right. Let me just saw one more super chat went past here. Let's just do that as well, because it's a very important point to make. My first super chat. It's like my first dolly, my first whatever they are, you know.
If you guys recognize that name, I always get a kick out of seeing him here in the chat. He is basically a superstar on Twitter. Yeah, just
Right.
a really cool person to have in the chat. Good to see you there, bro.
I'm going to do this because the one thing I do love about Māori is it just sounds out as it says it. Te rangi kai whiria. Te rangi kai whiria. Ki mara. Te rangi kai whiria ki mana.
I reckon you need a score out of 10 for that one.
Because rangi's easy,
What have you got?
kai is
Yeah.
easy, and then whiria. Te rangi kai whiria. Ki mara. That's what I'm going with. I'm sorry if I butchered it. My apologies.
And Josie Posey there acknowledging his true rank as the Antifa super soldier. Correct.
Cool, man. All right. Hey guys, it's been great. We will speak to you tomorrow night. Bomber's going to be with us. I remember Thursday night, budget night, we have got Craig Rennie, economist from the CTU, with us. And a bit of a heads up for next week, next Tuesday, we've got booked in the Chipolata himself. Chippy's going to join us at 9 o'clock live as well. So I've really pushed these guests to be live so you guys can interact with them. And that's about it. We will be catching you guys tomorrow night from 9 p.m. for another edition. Be safe, be swell, wherever you are. Please remember to, I'm just going to do a couple of things here to make sure this is working. Please remember to come back tomorrow night. Bring a friend with you. And we look forward to seeing you tomorrow night from 9 p.m. for another edition of Big Hairy News.
This is where you crank the speakers so the neighbors know you're listening.
Big Hairy style, keeping it loose. New Zealand, where the politics play, they bring the truth every single day. Talking about the mess all over the land. They shine a light with a mic in their hand. No time for cheese, just facts straight up. Plan and chew, never backing up. From the Cape to Bluff, no place too far. They expose the truth and raise the bar. Politicians tremble at their mighty voice. Pat and chew, it'll make the right choice.
All right, team. Tomorrow night, 9 o'clock, Bomber will be with us. All going well. We'll catch you then. Stay safe. Come back tomorrow. See you then. Remember, big show budget night as well. Be well out there. Hug a loved one. Say hey to your friends. Wash your hands. And be careful of COVID. Double the numbers this week to last week. Just have it in the back of your mind. Love you to bits. Hooroo.
Cheers, fam.